When you have found a topic that resonates, you have to have that guest back on. And that is exactly what we're doing today. So, you guys loved the episode I had with Hannah all about helping your kids navigate and thrive and weather divorce. We're back today to talk about how to help your teens, even if you're married and that kid hits teenage years. You know that things are different. I'm just starting to navigate it now. We are in the 13. So, we're going to talk a little bit about how to help slightly older children weather the storm of divorce. Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica, and today I have Hannah Strong with me again. You may remember Hannah from the previous season. She's a therapist, she's a coach, she's an industry expert, all about helping your child thrive through divorce. And you can find her online at My Thriving Child. So welcome back, Hannah. It's great to chat with you again.
Hello, thank you so much for having me back. I'm so excited to pull all of this teenage stuff apart because, as you said, oh my goodness, raising a teen, totally overwhelming and totally confusing. Even though we've been teenagers ourselves, it's like, what's going on with you? Where's my sweet child gone? Why are you closing down? All of this really, really hard stuff, let alone when you throw a divorce or separation into the mix and all that mum guilt and that anxiety. And are you acting like this because of the divorce? Are you acting like this because you're just a teenager? I don't know.
Right? Oh my God. I feel like you just described my life right now. Like my son was homesick this week. He just had a little head cold, right? And just his face. And I was like, are you sick? Or are you bored? Or are you pissed at me because you can't play video games? Because that's what happens when you're sick. Like,
Or all of those things.
right? Or like all of them. And just what you said, like he throws a face or an attitude or a little like snippety toned remark. And what happens? Instantly, mom guilt. Instantly, I'm like, oh, my baby, what did I do? How can I do more to take on for them? So, yeah, I think we're in the right spot today. So let's first talk a little bit about, let's set the foundations if they missed the first episode kind of around some of that mom guilt. So, because that's going to be the same no matter what age your child is. And so, as you're sitting in this place of contemplating divorce, or you're separated and trying to work through it, or maybe you've already filed for the divorce, there's a lot of guilt that starts to surface for us moms.
Totally. Oh, that mum guilt is, I mean, so I divorced, it's coming up to 6 years ago now. And I still have the mum guilt. I'm a therapist and I'm putting so many things in place for my children and for them to be okay. But it doesn't stop those pangs of mum guilt coming. And there's this thing called cognitive bias, which essentially means our brain highlights to us everything that we have done wrong rather than everything we've done right. And the reason for that is because that helps us survive and it helps us ensure our children survive if we're talking from an evolutionary perspective. But, in this day and age, we don't need to remember, oh, that bush has poison berries on it. Don't go there. We don't need to remember all this stuff that once kept us alive. So now all it does is it fills us with that constant anxiety and that constant worry that we're not doing it right. We're the worst mum in the world. I'm doing it all wrong. Am I going to be messing them up? And the downward spiral as well of going to bed anxious, not sleeping well, then having less capacity to deal with it the next day, and then potentially snapping back, and then you feel more guilty. It's tough.
Yeah, and I have had so many comments on the Instagram posts that people are choosing not to move forward in what they truly feel is right because of this fear of how it's going to impact their kids and what it's going to do. And and I can sit from a place, we can also pull up data and we could cite things and you could Google it. The reality is that your children are better off in one or two homes that both have respect and love versus one home that is built on unhealthy behaviors of resentment and pain and fighting. And so, yes, there's a big fear of being able to move forward, but the numbers, the data, the historical facts are showing that having a healthy family, whether that's 2 homes versus 1 home, is the better option. So to not let that guilt hold us back.
Yeah, and what you mentioned there about the, oh, this isn't right, I've known for a while, but I'm staying for the kids. Again, coming up for me is, let me help you understand why you're thinking that way and what your brain's doing. Your brain will always choose a familiar hell over a potential unfamiliar better option. And the reason is because this is certain, this familiar hell, this is certain. I know how to navigate this. I know kind of how my child's dealing with it. And I feel like, okay, it is what it is, and I can do this. But the unfamiliar, it has potentially its upsides, but the downsides feel so overwhelming and so uncertain that my brain is going to keep me in this place that feels safer, even if it feels like it's destroying me, or even if I feel like it's really damaging my child.
Yeah, that fear of the unknown. What if it gets worse? What if I make a mistake? What if it's just about to get better? If I can just continue to hold on a little bit longer, right? And we do this all the time. I sat in it for years, continuing to think, okay, it's just around the corner. My partner's just about to change. And the reality is sometimes we have to step through that fear. But before we can do that, right? Even before we can help our kids, you have to be able to get clear about that guilt. And you have to be able to separate exactly what Hannah's talking about from what is your mind's perception, kind of the smoke and mirrors it's creating to keep you in a place that feels comfortable, even if it doesn't feel good. Because no matter what, your kid is hurting. If you're not in check with your own emotions, you cannot help them. You continue to bleed all over that relationship instead of taking care of your own wounds first. So let's give them a few things to do to check if it's mom guilt and to get mom guilt back in line before we jump into what they can do with their teenager.
Mm, mm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, mum guilt's constant, right? It can be the smallest thing in terms of, oh, oh, should I have thought of that? Or, oh, they snapped at me, or, oh, I snapped back, and oh, I shouldn't have said it like that. And so often, certainly for me, it comes up when my kids are in bed, because that's when you sit and you rest and you reflect on the day and you think, oh God, why did I say it like that? Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, I'll do it differently tomorrow. And we start to spiral. And actually, that spiraling is all coming from the very emotive part of our brain. And what we need to do is step outside of that and get into this cognitive thinking part of our brain and think, okay, well, what actually are the facts here? If I look at my whole day and how I've been with my child, so we've had this issue here that happened at dinner time, but actually we've had a really great day apart from that. And how many times have I got it right versus that one time I got it wrong, or that few times that I got it wrong? And there have been multiple studies on how often we have to get it right versus getting it wrong. And we have to get it right 30% of the time for our children to grow up well-rounded and secure individuals. And hearing this, there's probably a large amount of people say, oh my gosh, but I don't even know if I get it right 30% of the time. I'm telling you, girl, you can get it wrong. If you have 10 interactions with your kids, you can get it wrong 7 times in that day, and they're still going to be okay. They need you to get it right 3 times out of 10.
I love that statistic because we do put so much pressure on ourselves. And so understanding that, guys, it's 30%. And go aim for 50, right? But if you get 30%, then you're like, phew, okay, I aimed for half the interactions I have with my kids. So how can you do this? Okay. So let's get real clear on what some specific behaviors are. First one, Hannah's already talked about. Sit down and reflect on your day. At the end of the day, I start back at the beginning of the day and I look through all of the things, looking for the thing that I'm most happy about, right? The thing that I'm most proud about. So think through all of the interactions you had with your kids that day. How did they go? Were you present? Were you aware? Were you able to meet them in the space that they were at? Part of parenting is setting the rules and the expectations and the boundaries. So, were you able to establish those and hold those, right? You can look at all of the places that you interacted. And the thing that I love that my therapist had told me is you're going to get it wrong, learn from it, and do your best to not do it again. And so if you've sat down and you're at the end of the day and you're reflecting through your day and you're like, wow, this is not how I want to be. Start tomorrow and start to shift one of those at a time. Look at how do you want to show up, right? I, for a long time, especially when I was hurting the most, made sure that I physically left my phone somewhere else. Like, in the kitchen, like, after dinner, we have our dinner together, my son and I, and then we're watching cartoons or doing something together that evening. I made sure my phone was nowhere close so that when that pain bubbled up, when I was in that moment of quiet, that I didn't reach for the addiction to entertain me because that took me away from being present with him. I also found that the more times I was on my phone, even now, if I'm sitting on my phone and I'm scrolling at night, which is a bad habit now that I run my own business, and so I'm looking constantly for whose content I like to reshare. When he comes to talk to me, I've noticed that I'm shorter because I'm in this hit of the next thing of the next thing. So just put it away. Put it in another room. Put it somewhere where you're gonna be able to stay present with your child because that's the thing that helps to alleviate the guilt, right? When we're there, when we're showing up, when you're in the present moment, the past pain, the past hurt can't get you, and you're building that connection in a way that really matters for your kids.
Yeah, I love that totally, and I love how self-aware you are there in noticing, yeah, when I'm feeling anxious, I reach my phone and I scroll because that just distracts me from all of this stuff going on inside. And yeah, who doesn't do that? But the fact of actually having to recognize it is one thing, and then having to put things in place in order to stop that. It's literally an addiction. So in order to stop that addiction from happening is huge. And I think, we are going to mess up, and we are going to mess up multiple times in the same way, especially when we're divorcing and we've got all of that stress and pressure on us. And all of that anxiety constantly resurfacing, and then we think, no, push that down, I want to be present with you, and then we're kind of beating ourselves up in the moment, and that's causing us to be not present. There's so many things coming our way causing us to not be present. So if you mess up, that's okay. The key thing you need to do from that is, when you feel regulated again and when your child feels regulated again, repair. Make the repair. Come to them and say, oh, when I snapped at you, I was feeling really overwhelmed because of this and this, and it wasn't your fault, and I'm sorry. And that is, wow, that is so reparative. The bond it will build between you and your child, and also the level of self-worth it builds for our children, because they think, I am worthy of someone coming to me and apologizing. And this provides our children with I guess, a blueprint of what healthy relationship looks like too. So when I'm older and I'm in a relationship, if someone does something to me that doesn't feel right, they need to come to me and we need to openly speak about it. And we'll both own, what we both did wrong. And how amazing is that for our children to grow up and have that blueprint for their future relationships?
Right, and I think that that is the perfect pivot into our topic for today because when you are able to model that, "Hey, guess what? I got emotional. I made a choice that I wasn't really happy with. I feel bad about it. And I want to come back and I want to tell you, I want to own what I did and apologize for my behavior and how I treated you. And then we're going to make commitments on how we can change this." That's exactly what we hope from our teenagers. And I have seen that modeled in my son in some of these instances where he is just moody. And I am like phoning a friend being like, "Lord help me through these next years. We have just started." And it's like, I don't understand it. He's just throwing a fit for and he gets quiet and goes to his room and gets crabby and whatever. But before bed, all of a sudden he's like, "Can you come sit with me?" "Yeah." "Did you want to talk about something?" "Yeah." And all of a sudden he's like, "I'm sorry." And he'll model those same behaviors that he watched me make because I didn't do it perfect. There were lots of times when my hurt was too big and I wasn't able to just be a calm, present parent. I was dealing with my own junk. But now I'm seeing him as he moves through his own phases using those same behaviors. So let's talk about kids, teenagers specifically in divorce. Are there any big shifts on how divorce hits teenagers different than younger kids?
I think there are a number of things, but one of the most key things is control and teenagers wanting to feel an element of control over the situation. And the reason for that is I think all parents need to understand what is going on in my teen's brain, literally just from a teenage perspective, and how does this change in our marriage affect them, and how do I support them because of what their brain is now seeking, which was different when they were 5 or 8. And from the ages of roughly 12 to 25, this is when adolescence happens within the teenage brain. So puberty is different. Puberty is the changes that happen in our body. Adolescence is the changes that happen in our brain. And essentially what happens is our child during this period has to go from someone who is attached and reliant on their caregiver to someone who is independent. And this is the brain changing in a kind of 13-year period, changing from I'm attached and reliant to I'm independent. And so that's why we see our teens pushing us away, trying to figure out what they're about, trying to figure out, do I like this? Do I not like this? No, I don't want you to speak like that. No, I'm going to assert myself more. No, I'm going to put these boundaries in because I'm figuring out me. And I am slowly, over a period of years, moving to a point where I am an individual in my own right. So control is really important for children of all ages, but control and divorce for teens and a sense of feeling in control is super, super important to their mental health and to them feeling respected and securely attached to their caregivers during that time. And by control, I don't mean, oh, hey, do whatever you want, go for it, because they're still children. They still need us to look after them. We still, I guess, know better from an adult's perspective what is good for them and perhaps what wouldn't be good for them. So we still have to put boundaries in place and we still have to provide certainty, but actually let's bring you in as a team member rather than someone who I'm looking after and I'm telling what's going to happen. What do you want to happen? When we do move, you don't have any control over the fact that we are going to move, but when we do move, what do you want your room to look like? What friends do you want round? What kind of things shall we cook? What do you want your life to look like?
Yeah. I I think that all kids are definitely seeking control no matter what their age is. But to me, the biggest difference is when my child was trying to find control, it could be as simple as, "Great, you pick where we get to go out to dinner tonight." And the older they get, it is not as simple to be able to solve those needs. And I love what you said about the learning how to be an independent human, figuring out who they are. I think that that sums it up. And just even being able to take that lens when you see your teenager acting out, being able to take that lens and say, wow, this is them trying to figure out who they are in this world. And if you've done the work over the years, right, you've done the work to continue to give your child more ability to pick and choose, more ability to control what's happening. I think about the funniest one that still drives me a little bit batty was this winter. My almost teen was deciding whether or not he wanted to wear a coat. And that in my adult mind, that's not always the right choice, right? Like I was like, you need to wear a coat. It's snowing out or it's 20 degrees out or it's, like we're cold where I live. He wanted to make his own choices. Were there times when I stepped in and I was like, unacceptable? Yes. When we are like, you're going to have frostbite in a few minutes, like you can't be at the bus stop without something. Did he get pissed? Yes. Did he still wear the coat those days? Yes. But on that gray area in between, we learned how to co-create together. I learned how to trust that he was going to try something out, but then I could circle back and be like, was that what you wanted or not? Now, they can't decide everything. They're still a kid. They can't decide whether or not the divorce happens. They can't decide, not always, right, decide who they get to live with, if they have to sell the house, if they have to move. So if you're sitting in a place where you're like, my kid can't make these decisions, these things are happening. I want you to think about how frustrating it is for you to have choices forced upon you. And then think about how frustrating it is for them, especially being that those teenage years are full of uncertainty. Friendship groups are changing, they're moving between schools, losing any sense of security that they have. Their family unit is now no longer secure. The idea of, are my parents going to stop loving me one day is no longer secure. And now they're having to lose friends or a school or a community as well. It can be big, big emotions.
Totally. And I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there in terms of, yes, we want to give our teen control, but we also have to give them certainty. And these things have to be balanced. So if they have too much control and because they're taking more control because they don't feel certain in stuff that's happening in their lives, then this causes anxiety for them. Or if they almost not have too much certainty, but they have no choice, and everything is, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, and they have no control, this causes anxiety too. So we want to kind of balance them up, and this is hard. But I think it can feel really hard divorcing with a teen. You can think, oh my gosh, should I have done it earlier? Would it have been easier? Should I just waited until they're in their 20s? But actually, one of the great things about divorcing when you've got a teen is that you can be really open and adult about conversations, and they can bring their feelings to you when they feel ready. Most of the time they'll probably just shut themselves in their room, but when they feel ready, they are able to articulate how they feel, and that's really powerful. And you're able to have these conversations with them that make things really clear, like, okay, so let's say mum and dad, my two caregivers who I thought were securely attached through love, have now become unattached, and I am attached to my mum and my dad through love. So does that mean that will ever become unattached? And you can really openly just have that conversation, and they will be able to grasp it because of their, cognitive ability at that age. And that's amazing for being able to soothe those anxieties, which, is harder. It is a lot harder in younger children. So you can bring all that to the table, and you can do lots of amazing exercises with them that show that you care. You can say, look, so much is changing for you. This must feel really scary, really overwhelming, really uncertain. I am so committed as your mum to making you feel okay in this process. And I want to look at everything that's important to you in your life and look at not how I can jump in and rescue you from this, but how we work as a team to figure out all of this stuff and make sure you feel certain in the things that we do have control over. And it could even be something like, okay, my teenage daughter, it's very important to her that she straightens her hair every morning before school, because Instagram girls, and they want to look great at school, and that on my image is everything at school and everyone's looking at me. Okay, well, you probably feel anxious when you go to dad's and you haven't got straighteners there. So we're going to make sure we pack your straighteners, or we're going to make sure we get you another pair at dad's. What is important to your world and what has a huge impact on your day, stuff to us that might feel really, really small, could cause our child to have a whole day full of anxiety because they haven't felt seen by us in the stuff that's super, super important to their life.
Hey there, it's Erica, your guide at the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I want to take a moment to express how much your feedback means to us. Your ratings, your reviews, they are like fuel for our journey together. They not only brighten our day, but they help other women find the support and the guidance they need. Leaving a rating and review is super easy, and it makes a world of difference. If you're listening on Spotify, simply scroll down to the bottom of the podcast page and then tap on rate. If you're tuning in on iTunes, head over to the podcast page, scroll down, and click on write a review. It only takes a minute, but it could help someone else find this podcast and change their life. Your voice matters, your feedback helps us grow, so take a moment to share your thoughts and experiences. Together, we can help spread the word to support even more women. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Let's continue to support each other and make a difference, one review at a time. When you said in there that you don't want to rescue your child, I also want to highlight that sometimes, you guys, I see parents ask their child to rescue them. And this is such a time for growth on both parts, okay? So you have this child who, in all honesty, the divorce is going to cause them to have to grow up faster. I'm just going to rip that Band-Aid off right now. There is a big dream of the traditional home that is breaking, and big fears are being inserted into their lives, and new responsibilities are showing up, and they're having to handle a lot of challenges that friends their age maybe don't have to. So they are going to grow up early. They're going to grow up faster. My child doesn't act quite like his age. He acts like a little old man sometimes, but that's because he's an only child and he's a child of divorce, and he had to grow up a lot faster. It also meant that I had to learn how to let go while maintaining that safety net so that I'm not stepping in and rescuing my child. And do I? Yes. And sometimes even now, I try and take on more because he had to go through these things and because he had this divorce in his life and I think that if I take on more, that makes it easier for him. But the challenge is it never teaches him how strong he truly is. It never shows him the grit that he has and the perseverance to keep going, even when things are hard. And the same holds true for you. When it's really hard and you just want to feel better, oftentimes we rely on our kids. Oh, they gave me a hug, or they made me a cute art project, or it's such unconditional love that we have in this bond. But they're becoming little independent people too. And they shouldn't have to be the thing that helps you feel okay again. And so being able to understand that about your role for your child, but also not putting those expectations on your child so that you can feel better in this process. And I think that shows up why when we want our kids to just do all the right things. Don't make things any harder for me. It's already hard enough. So just be the good kid, right? Watch the Disney movies with me and have a nice dinner and like what I make and clean your room the first time I ask and always brush your teeth, right? But that's not realistic.
Yeah, totally. Be the good kid because I can't handle this right now. And that's true. You probably can't handle it right now. But what relationship do we want to show our children a kind of blueprint of, as we were talking about, for them to then take into their future romantic relationships or even friendships? And if it's I am responsible for your emotional well-being, and my acts of service or whatever they might be, or the way I behave has a direct impact on how you are emotionally, then this is the dynamic they bring forward into their friendships, into their romantic relationships. And you get that kind of chronic people pleasing syndrome, which we don't want for our kids. So what does a healthy relationship look like then? So if we look at, we've got where we want to be is an interdependent relationship. So that is two people, I'm comfortable being close with you, I'm comfortable being far away from you. I'm comfortable you being lovely and sweet and helping me. I'm comfortable when you don't want to. And you don't want to do what I want you to do. You want to be your own person. And that's a really big thing as a teen. I am becoming my own person. I want to be my own person. And I'm comfortable with that. That's kind of where we want to get to. And then we've got kind of a codependent relationship. which can be, okay, I'm not comfortable when you go. Oh, you're not comfortable when I go either. And we're very clingy to each other. And oh, my child worries, am I okay? When they're at their other parents, and I worry, are they okay? And it's quite kind of smothering and overwhelming. And we've got to be lovely and kind to each other all the time. There is absolutely no room for any slip ups, or no room to kind of be anything outside of the box, or to be moody, or to not do your chores, or to not do anything. And then we've got an independent relationship, which is, I'm comfortable with being apart, but actually true intimacy and being really close with you feels too much. And it can feel sometimes scarily that our children are moving into this independent relationship when they're teens, because they're very much like pushing away and becoming my own person. And before, they might have come and snuggled up to us on the sofa, and now they're like, oh no, don't hug me. No, oh God. Unless they're really distressed, they're not coming to you for that kind of constant comfort. And that can feel scary. But as long as when they need it, they are coming to you, then you are in an interdependent relationship. So there's lots of different things to kind of pull apart in terms of, what do I actually feel comfortable with my child, and what pressures am I putting on them in terms of how they behave, or how they relate to me, or even messages I'm sending in terms of, I just miss you so much, I'm sad when you're gone, or these kind of things.
You mentioned it earlier too, that, the nice part about having your kids be a little bit earlier is that you can have all these clear conversations with them. They understand words and they understand feelings far more than an elementary age, your 5, 6, 7, 8 year old can comprehend. The added challenge to that is a lot of times teenagers don't want to talk to you. And they are very good at the silent treatment and staying away much longer than your 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-old are. So while both kids will take space, the teenager has really perfected the role, right? Of locking themselves in their bedroom or of going to their friend's house and being very good at just avoiding you for a long time. And there can be a lot of reasons for that, that maybe they don't know how to put all their feelings to words, but they just feel it in their body, right? The anger, the resentment, the fear, they feel it. And they can be mad at you too. Even if the divorce wasn't your choice or wasn't your fault or wasn't something that you wanted, they still can be mad at you. And so that comment about, my child won't talk to me at all. And I keep trying to talk to them. And I see it happen in the comments on Instagram, right? I hear it in my clients and they're like, I want to show up and I want to have this big open conversation with my child. And they just won't listen to me and they keep shutting me out. And the parent keeps pushing for the connection right now. And the more they push for the connection, the more the child pulls away. So if you are in this situation, your child's giving you the silent treatment, you want to have, they're hurting, you're hurting, seeing them hurt, you want to have the big conversations and they want to have nothing to do with you. What can somebody do in that situation?
What's happening there essentially in terms of why a child, or even a person, this is the same dynamic in relationships too. If someone is really chasing another to connect, the other is likely to pull away. So we're seeing this dynamic in a number of different relationships. And so, okay, I'm mum and I'm really, really chasing down my child and they keep on shutting me out and it feels really overwhelming. Yes, we are desperately trying to connect with our child because we're concerned about our child and we want them to be okay. But we're also doing it because we feel so uncomfortable with that disconnection. And our child can see that that we need them to make us okay in that moment, and they potentially don't have capacity for that. They don't want to do that. They're trying to be their own person. You sort yourself out, mum. I'm doing my own thing. It's up to you to do your own thing. And the more we chase, the more it's kind of smelling of this, I need you to make me feel okay, even though underneath it all is our deep care for them and wanting them to be okay. it's our anxiety around that having to be the case that it's just so much pressure on our children. So pulling back doesn't mean, okay, I just completely drop it. I don't say anything. I act as they do, and I also, don't say much to them. It's, if they won't speak to you, sending a message, just one message, or catching them when you're in the kitchen, just say, hey, I've noticed, own it. I've noticed I've really been trying to chat and you really don't want to. And you know what? I get it. You've got so much going on, and maybe I'm not the person you want to talk to right now. And I've realized the reason I wanted to talk so much is because I care so much that you're okay. But actually, it's not your responsibility to make sure you're okay to make me feel okay. So wherever you're at and whenever you're ready to talk, I am so here. Just know that I love you and I'm here whenever you want me. And wow, freeing. Oh, good. You don't need me to come in and make sure that you're okay. That that is what our teens need, essentially. It's giving them control over the situation. And if we are there as that safe base, they can then come to it when they want and go when they want, come to it when they want and go to it when they want. And essentially, they're going to do that. They're going to come to it more when they're in those early years of teens, and they're going to come to us less and less as that safe base as they get older and go throughout as adolescence. And that is really hard for us. And there's a whole grieving process and all of that too. So, have a look internally and think, what's going on for me here? Have I got stuff to grieve? Have I got stuff to let go of? But it's so, so hard.
The language you used was so important that, you can have the conversation, acknowledge it. Hey, I know I've been trying to reach you. I get it. You don't want to talk to me right now. It is so important to reiterate, but I am always here. And when you're ready, I'm ready. And I think, for me, I use that in my son when he's having his moments. I knock on the door, checking in. Are you feeling any better yet? Do you want to talk about it? No, right? No, no, mom. And then I just reiterate, okay, I'm here when you're ready. And keep offering that, because I think about when I was a teen, I was dealing with a lot of big emotions and a lot of hurt and the normal gripes of being a teenager. And it was too hard for me to go back to a parent who had already offered help that I had denied, right? Because in the moment I was like, "Pff, no, I don't want to talk to you, mom. I don't want to deal with you, mom." Okay, but now I needed somebody and I didn't know how to bridge that gap again. So just continuing to let them know you're available without turning the needy switch back on. You've made the comment, you've created the space, you've said, "Hey, when you're ready for me, I'm here." And then they don't show up right away. And you go, "Well, but I did the thing. I did the thing. I cleared the space. You're supposed to come to me now." And they might not come right away. And that gets me too, like I'll be like, "But I did all the right things and I'm holding the space. And why doesn't he move through the pain faster?" They're going to move through it at their pace. So being able to deal with your own healing and grief and uncomfortableness and continue to be the safe space. I'm here when you're ready. And if I'm not the person you want to talk to, is there somebody I can help connect you with? Do you want to talk to a therapist? Is there somebody at your school? Is there an aunt, an uncle, a friend? Is there some other trusted adult figure that might be a better support system for them right now?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a lot of looking at ourselves raising teens. More looking at ourselves. Does it ever end? But yeah, it's it's a whole grief process in itself. Our child slowly letting go of us, whether divorce is involved or not. And give yourself some empathy and some compassion, because it's not easy.
It's not, but hopefully the tips we have talked about today, listen to this episode again, go back through it, right? If you're struggling to figure out your own mom guilt, if you're dealing with a teen who really just doesn't want to talk to you, if you're dealing with a teen that has a huge amount of anger, being able to disconnect from their problems that create your problems so that you can be neutral. You've got your healing on one side and you're watching them on the other side, and it hurts to watch them suffer, but you can give them those options. It means it might not always be you. That's part of your kids growing up. The hardest thing that I see parents struggle with so much, they have these little babies and they think these babies are here to make them happy for their whole life. Think about yourself if you're listening and you have kids. Did you have your kids because you thought it was going to be something that made you really, really happy? For sure. I was like, kids is the next thing on my list. I just want to have kids because it'll be so much fun. Oh my God, it's so much work. And it's delightful and it is rewarding, but it's so much work. And if you take away one thing, becoming a parent, your number one job is to set them up for success to leave you and thrive in this world. So your whole point is to help them launch. And they are in a place where they have to figure out how to deal with big emotions and how to clarify what they're feeling and how to speak up for their needs. And on top of all the other chaos that happens in their teenage years. So remain calm, have your own support system, look at other options that can support them because you don't have to be the end all be all support system for them. You just want to make sure that they're going to trusted sources and not things that aren't helpful, right? The distractions, the addictions. They're not going to another kid trying to get advice on something that's a really complex adult situation.
Yeah, totally. And that can feel hard to control that when our kids have their own phone and they can look up anything online and they can read anything and they can chat to anyone. That can feel really, really hard. And I think looking at the way we can bring it under our control, well, it's not even our control, it's our influence as such. It's not under our control, but our influence is okay, who are the important people in my child's life? Perhaps there was an uncle that was really fun, when they were younger and they don't see each other so much anymore. But actually, can I reach out to them and just get them to drop them a text and be like, hey, do you want to go for a coffee? Or let's go for a kickabout in the park or whatever it is. How can I get my wider connections or my child's wider connections to reach out to them in a way that doesn't feel like I'm forcing anything on them, but that they know that they are cared for by people that I trust and I know have their best interests at heart.
I love that. We all need important adults in our life. And I would probably bet, well, maybe it's just me because I didn't have a close relationship, but I feel like I would bet 90% of people need a relationship with an adult outside of their parents. Just to have another modeling of adult relationships, of how to communicate, of how to be a person, right? It's so helpful when they see somebody outside of that family model, the initial family model that's there. If you guys need more help, there are options for you. So if you're looking at your own emotional healing, I would love to help you along the way. As you are aware, you guys, there are coaching or group coaching. There's also the Instagram subscription where you can get your questions answered when I go live. Hannah also has programs to support you as you're trying to get your family and your new look of your family through your divorce. So, Hannah, do you have any shout outs specifically for somebody who is struggling with their teens, what they should take a look at from your services to get more support?
If you're struggling, do you know what? Follow me on Instagram. It's at underscore my thriving child. And drop me a DM and tell me about your situation. And I will send you stuff that's bespoke to you and your child. We've kind of gone over some really broad stuff at the moment, which is applicable to all teens and children, but actually it can feel like there might be some really personal issues going on for you that are specific to your separation and specific to your team. So send me a DM and I'll be happy to get back to you.
I do love that. You guys, you should definitely reach out. If you're struggling trying to figure out how to help your kid through this process, I love Hannah's account. That's how I first found her. I've loved her content, and you guys love her. That's why we have her back. She just helps us look at things and feel more at peace, to be honest, like just we're all going to be okay. we are all going to get through this with the support of each other. So until next week, you guys take some time for yourself, put that cell phone in a different room and get present with your kids, and take a look at your own healing when it comes to allowing your teenager to spread their wings and fly a little bit farther away from home. So we'll talk to you guys all next week. And until then, take care. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.